Welcome to Learn It, a series of digital scrapbooking tutorials by Studio Wendy at Scrapbook Graphics. Today I wanted to demonstrate my Alpha Cutter Alpha Saver and Export Template PNG scripts. These are two of my most popular sets, and I thought it might be helpful to just see them in action through a video. So I'm here in my Finder, and I've got up the Alpha Cutter Alpha Saver download file and the Export Template PNGs file so you can see the contents. In my script download files, you will find usually a action folder and a script folder. And then sometimes you'll have some other pieces in there, but those are the main portions, the action folder and the script folder. And you need to install both of these things. So for the actions, if you expand it, you have a Mac version and a Windows version. For older ones, there may be an XP version. I'm not supporting XP anymore, so the newer scripts will not have that option. So open up the folder for the correct operating system and then load that action into your program. For Creative Cloud or CS, you can just double click on it. It will automatically load into the most recent version of your application. For Photoshop Elements, you have two options depending on your version. You can load it through the Actions panel in PSE 11 and newer, and for older ones you have to copy the files manually to the location that is listed in the installer tutorial download. So get your actions installed. That's step number one. Step number two is to install the scripts. To install the scripts, it's really super easy. You want to first locate the folder where those scripts need to get copied. This is going to be a hidden folder for most of you. For Mac, you'll see it's under Macintosh hard drive in your main library folder. This is not your user folder. So if your computer is named Wendy and then library, you're looking in the wrong spot. Back out to the Macintosh hard drive, go into the library folder and find application support. If you've installed one of my script sets previously, you will already have a Wendyzine Scraps folder here. If you haven't, you can either make one or you can simply copy the entire Wendyzine Scraps folder that's in this scripts folder over here into the application support. If you do have a Wendyzine Scraps folder, then open it up and copy the contents of that into the Wendyzine Scraps folder over here in your application support. It's as simple as that. Now the reason I wanted to also show you the Export Template PNGs folder is because the scripts for this one are just slightly different. So let's open up the Wendyzine Scraps folder. In this case, you'll see that there's a folder Export Template PNGs in here. In this case, you would copy this entire folder into the Wendyzine Scraps folder. Don't drill down and grab these files. Go ahead and copy this entire folder. Once the files have been copied into your application support Wendyzine Scraps folder, you should be good to go. If you've copied them into the wrong place, when you go to run the action in Photoshop, you will get a message that the Java code is missing. And that's a clue that you probably were not copying into the right place, or you didn't name the Wendyzine Scraps folder correctly, or something like that. One more note on the scripts install location. On my collab projects with Anna Forrest, some of those get installed in the application support Anna Forrest Designs folder. So just check the documentation that came with the download to make sure where you're supposed to be installing it. Finally, if you're on a PC, it's a similar concept. You are looking for your main user folder, your default user, in your app data folder. So it's the same sort of structure, it's just these things are named differently. And this location, of course, is listed in the install tutorial PDF that came in your download. Okay, so now we are all set up here. Let us go over to Photoshop and demonstrate how these work. Okay, we are here in Photoshop, and I'm going to quickly run through the export layers PNG. The export template PNG action and scripts are designed for templates, which means that everything should be rasterized and left on the same size canvas that it was designed on. Nothing will be trimmed down. And that's so when somebody opens it in another program, they can stack it all right back on top of each other and everything falls in position exactly. But there are a couple things that you want to do before you run this script. The first thing would be to put your special effects onto their own layers. So to do that, I'm going to come down here, right click on the FX button and say create layer. That puts that drop shadow on its own layer. That allows the user to control that later. So we're going to do that with each of these that have a drop shadow on it. And you have to make sure you actually click that FX icon. If you accidentally get a little bit over to the left, you won't find the option. So that is the first thing that you want to do. Now, the action should skip over these groups, but if you want, you can ungroup these by going to Ungroup Layers. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and select the Export Layer PNGs action and press play. We get a message here telling us that it needs to be installed and what it's going to do, and that we need to select a folder to put the PNGs in. So press continue. Then we're going to get this pop-up box where we are able to set the options for renaming our layers. The idea is if we name these in order, the customer will know the order they need to be stacked back into. So you can add a base. So if you want it to be named layer in front, you can do that. If you want an underscore, you can put it there. If you want no base name, you can just leave it blank and it will just number them by number. You can also choose between numeric and numeric descending. And the difference there is one is going to number from the top to the bottom and one is going to number from the bottom to the top. Append digits will be how many numbers are going to show at the end of the layer. So if you have 10 layers or less, you may want to just have one digit. But if you have lots of layers, you may want it to be 01, 02, 03, or even 001, 002. So that's your digits there. So I'm going to put in 2 digits. Then you can tell it to append the existing name, which would put all this information after the name that you already have on the layer. And you can choose whether to skip those groups that I told you about or to rename them. So once you've set your options, just click OK. The first thing the script will do is go through and renumber the layers, which you see here. And then you're prompted to find a folder to save them in. So let's do that real quick. What you want to do is create a folder with the name of this template. So this template is, can't see it now, I think it was Summer Camp. So I would name this WZ Summer Camp. And if this is template 1, I might go 1 and then create. And that will open up that folder and I can click open to select it. And now all these layers are going to be saved out into that folder exactly in position on this 12 by 12 canvas. Here's the folder where we saved it, and you can see it's been named WZ Summer Camp 1, and then all of the layers follow there behind. So that is the export template PNGs. Let's close out of that. Now the Alpha Cutter Alpha Saver works very similarly. The biggest difference here is that you have 2 parts to this set. You have the cutter and you have the saver. And the saver will trim these files down so you don't have excess canvas. In this case, because this alpha is so tight up on this sheet, I'm going to need to zoom in. So let me do that by pressing Command plus, Command minus, and I'm going to grab my marquee tool, the square one. The first thing we need to do is cut these letters. So I'm going to drag a box around the first letter. There we go. And I am going to run the alpha cutter. So press play. I'm prompted to enter a name, so I'm going to call this uppercase A and press OK. You'll see it's been cut onto its own layer, it's been named, and I've been returned to the sheet so that I can select the next one and continue on. Now, I can continue to press play here on the Layers panel. There's nothing wrong with that. But it will be quicker if I can assign this to a function key. To do that, you want to make sure the action you want to assign the F key to is selected. Click the contextual menu and come down to Action Options. Here it says Function Key. Click that and you can assign it to any function key that's not being used. If you select one and it is being used, then you'll be prompted to add Shift or Command to it. So here I can use F1, it's not being used, and press OK. Now what I can do is select my letter, just like I did before, and press F1. And then I'm prompted to name it. What I can also do is copy any text that I want to repeat. So if I'm going to call this uppercase every time, I can type that in and then just hit the C, and there I go. So I can zip along here, hit F1, press Command V to paste and the letter D, and I'm on my way. So I'm going to cut this up real quick, just repeating the same step over and over again. F1, paste E. If you leave a little bit of space between your letters when you create them, this is a lot easier to do, because then you don't really have to think so much and pay attention so much to drawing your boxes. You can just whip one around it and be confident that you grabbed that and only that. If they're tight like this, you have to spend a little bit more time making sure that you haven't overstepped the boundaries of that particular letter. When I finished cutting out this alpha, then I can go to the alpha saver, which I could also assign to an F key if I wanted to, or just press play. This is going to work just like the PNG action. We're going to click New Folder, give this the name of our kit, which in this case is Microfirk All About Me. Click Create and Open. And now we are going to trim every letter down to size and save it out. It might take a minute or two depending on how many letters you're trying to save out, but when it's done we will have an alpha that's ready to pack up and put in the store. So all of my export actions and scripts work this way. There's export TIFs for people who want to convert all of their PNGs to TIF files. There's also export JPEGs for saving out papers that are created on individual layers, or maybe journal cards that have square corners that are created on individual layers. Export JPEGs will handle that. You've got the alpha cutter. because the Alpha Cutter and Alpha Saver trims everything down, you can also use this set for saving out elements that you create all in the same file. And if you have a file where you create elements on different layers already, you can skip the cutting step and just go right to the saving step. And then of course the template export layers PNGs is for templates because it keeps everything not trimmed. So that is the whole line of export actions. I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next time.